Thank you very much indeed. I welcome the witnesses here today, and indeed it's an honour to have people with such distinguished military backgrounds, and I particularly welcome Maureen O'Brien here, who is the highest ranking female officer from the Irish Defence Forces, and she's from the west of Ireland as well, which ain't too bad. So I welcome you here. Colonel Doyle gave us a view of the triple lock. In your service overseas, and all four of you have served overseas, has the question of the triple lock ever occurred for any other force from any other country anywhere in the world?
I'd say certainly in my case, because I was Chief of Staff in New York for 2.5 years, it never arose, there was never any mention, and I don't know it definitively, but I have no recollection of it ever being used before by any other nation.
Do any of you see it as in any way undermining the sovereignty of our nation?
Senator, if I could just come in there in relation to what Colonel Doyle has said, I concur. I've never come across a situation where any civilian in Kosovo or an NGO worker or Chad had asked what was our status in respect of our service in that country. Their only interest was, providing them with the protection that they said desperately needed in respect of that. So I would never have come across any situation where that particular issue became an issue for any of the local populations.
If I could come in on that one as well, Senator.
Yep.
So does it dilute our sovereignty? I would say absolutely. We're a democratic country, and what we're doing is we're taking some of that democratic power that we have in Dublin and we're giving it to kings and queens and authoritarian rulers and wannabe dictators all over the world. So it does dilute our sovereignty. But to me, it also undermines the United Nations. So the triple lock doesn't support the United Nations, it actually undermines it. Chapter 8 of the UN Charter is very specific that under Article 52, it not only permits, but it encourages regional entities to conduct peacekeeping operations. So Ireland is a signatory to the UN Charter, and on that basis, we are obligated to uphold the provisions in the Charter. But the triple lock undermines Chapter 8. So there's an incongruity there, and hope that answered your question. So yes, it does dilute Irish sovereignty, and it also undermines the UN Charter and by extension, the United Nations itself.
Thanks, Carl. Major General O'Brien.
Yes, I agree. When I was in New York and selecting from the 119 troop contributing countries that there, whether they were neutral or needed a triple lock was never a consideration. It's not something we're concerned about. That's a national issue. With regard to increasing our sovereignty, I think, in fact, the triple lock decreases our sovereignty. We cannot make our own decisions. We're dependent on 5 countries telling us whether or not we can deploy. I think that reduces our sovereignty and perhaps our neutrality as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to turn to points made by Dr. Berry with respect to evacuation operations, counter-narcotic operations and diplomatic missions. 2 questions on those. I mean, decisions in those areas are usually made at very short notice. If there's, for example, I'm delighted to see our naval service has captured 30 million euros of drugs today. So to make a decision to deploy for a drug interdiction, or for that matter, let's go back to Kabul, getting people out of serious harm quickly. If the triple lock applies and all you can send is 12 troops, what impediment as a commander, and all of you have commanded, what impediment would you see in only being able to send 12 troops?
If I may answer that, 12 troops isn't enough to do anything. You can't prepare properly and you can't execute your operation properly when you've only got 12 people. You need at the very least 50 people, at the very least, to do that, to plan and operate and execute a mission, something like that. Yeah.
Can I just add to that, within the military framework, we have a specific command structure stretching from section to platoon to company. And within that structure, people are trained to operate within that structure. I mean, a figure of 12 seems to me to be pulled out of the air. I mean, the minimum figure you would need for any kind of an operation, say, for example, like Kabul, for example, was a platoon-level operation with supporting elements. And that's where I see the wisdom, for example, of inserting that particular stipulation of up to 50 people at the discretion of the government to deal with issues like, and it's not just about even a simple thing like a sporting fixture. You can imagine a number of years ago we had to try and get a hurling team to play a hurling match in London, and the hoops we had to go through to get the team to London because of this figure of 12. So it impacts not just on operational matters but on social and sporting matters as well.
Colonel Lloyd.
Well, I think if you talk about, the figures, when we talk about a platoon, it's the smallest military unit normally that we have, and that consists of about 34, 35, 36. But when you talk about a figure of 12, you have to bear in mind that for those 12, you need a certain amount of backup. What transport are you going to use? What security are you going to provide? So really, of the 12, only a small fraction of that could be operational, because the others are in an administrative or support capacity. So I think the figure of 50 is the figure that's reckoned. If you send a platoon someplace, the entire package has to be more than the strength of that platoon. And it is reckoned that a platoon of 35 with a backup of another to make up the total of 50 sounds very reasonable to me as a soldier.
Thank you. Dr. Berry, because I'm limited on time here, I want to go to the other parts of the bill because we won't get a chance to hear from you again. Suspensions and court-martials. You adverted to them in your report. Do you want to just expand on that a little bit?
Yes, Senator. Look, I'm in favour of the principle of powers of suspension to be granted to the Chief of Staff, just like the Garda Commissioner, but the safeguards have to be in place to make sure that the principles of natural justice and looking after the well-being of anybody who's suspended applies as well. So that's my answer on that one. If I could just mention about the 12, just if there is a rescue operation to be launched, just bear in mind the crew of an Air Corps aircraft could be 4 or 5. So realistically, you might only have 5 or 6 to actually do the job. So it's completely restricted. It'd be like telling the fire brigade they can only send 12 firefighters to put out a fire. And then finally, just your very first question in relation to triple lock, does it dilute our sovereignty? The triple lock is a type of mechanism that a colony would have to request permission from an outside power for them to do an activity. It's not the kind of mechanism that a sovereign, independent, democratic state would have.
Okay, Garmagat, Senator Craughwell.
Issues. Three things I need cleared up, and the first one is to Major General O'Brien. The issue of defence attaches, which covers the expansion of roles, it was suggested here by the Department of Defence that a defence attaché could be a civilian. Are you aware of any civilian anywhere who's acting as defence attaché?
Absolutely not, and I can tell you that if there was a defence attaché that was a civilian, they wouldn't be in, we'll just say, in the setting that I was in New York. They would not be welcomed into that environment because they don't understand the complexities of the military environment, and it's
No go.
no go.
Okay.
Major General Brennan, you in your submission referred to Defence Force regulations and Defence Force legislation. Is it the case that the Defence Forces are ultimately subordinate to the Department of Defence, and when it comes to things like suspensions, we had the very high-profile case of a soldier who had to be put on gardening leave or whatever you want to call it. The commander on the ground had no choice because the regulations did not provide for it. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yes, but could I just clarify your first position? The Defence Forces are responsible operationally. They're not subordinate to the Department operationally. They are for all other matters in relation to policy. And to answer your question, correct, nobody, the Chief of Staff, nobody, I know the case in question, no, they didn't have the authority to suspend any individual, notwithstanding the furore that was created in the media, etc. about that.